Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Shravani Itkilwar and I'm working as Research Associate in AAA. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we can hear
Shravani.
you. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
The topic for webinar is Action Towards $1 Billion Esco Market.
Turned on the green button on the side, like for audio and for the video. I think we can see your video. There is a green on audio. You see the green button, which is like kind of the panel that comes out on the GoToWebinar. So you have to make that button green so that you are
Dr.
audible.
Satish Kumar, could you mute
The
your
right
phone?
arrow after below that, there should be a mic button. There should be a video button. So
Only.
Yes. The topic for today's webinar is Action Towards $1 Billion Esco Market. And today we are going to engage with selected Escos and investors to discuss innovative solutions which can help address some of the choke points faced by Escos in their business. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. We have kept all the participants on mute to avoid any background noise. If you have any questions during the seminar, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel, along with the name of the speaker to whom you are directing the question. I will bring them up at the end of the session. This session is being recorded and the recording will be shared with all the participants. Now I would like to invite Dr. Satish Kumar, who is one of the founding member of AEEE and also serves as the President and Executive Director. Dr. Satish has a vast experience including scientific research, leadership in the energy efficiency space in multiple organizations like LBNL, USAID, Schneider Electric, and now AEEE. I now request Dr. Satish to give the opening remarks on today's session. Over to you, sir. Satish sir, can you please unmute yourself? Satish sir?
okay, hello.
Satish sir, can you...
Yeah. Someone has muted me and I was not able to unmute myself, so I don't know what was going on. Okay, now I see that I have been unmuted. So thank you. Thank you, Shravani, for that introduction. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this webinar titled Actions Towards $1 Billion Esco Market. The title is kind of synonymous with a report that AEEE had come out about 3 years ago, which was an assessment of the potential and opportunities in the ESCO market, and where we have interacted with many of the ESCO companies which are operating in this space, and also some of our member companies, and we are very happy to have some of our member companies represented, along with Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and also people from the financing world. And the way we have tried to structure this particular webinar is that we are trying to get some discussions going on what are the things that has gone well with this segment, and what can we do to really transform and scale up and convert the potential into reality. So what I'll do is that I'll just go through some introductory remarks outlining some of the thinking behind this, as well as setting the context before I hand it over back to Shravani. So we know that, just very briefly, I am assuming that most of the people are aware about the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy. We are an industry platform and industry-led think tank as well. And we work on the demand side of energy consumption. Our beginning was very much focused around creation of the energy services market in India. So we still have that as sort of like at the heart of our things, but we of course work on many other energy efficiency related activities as well. We work very closely with the government. We have about 40 member companies, and many of them are ESCOs, energy service companies, or energy management companies, or energy data management, or the analytics company, which I think can also be termed as energy service companies. And one of the things that we focus on is that how can private sector and public sector work together to realize the full potential of energy efficiency in India. So many of you may be aware that India has made its commitments through national determined contributions for reducing emission intensity in the Indian economy. And reducing emission intensity through energy efficiency is amongst the key strategies adopted by the Indian government. And we have Mr. Arijit Gupta, who will be talking about the efforts that BE has made. If we look at the energy savings potential across different demand sectors, then that comes to about like 87 or 90 million tons of oil equivalent till 2030 under the moderate scenario, under the model that the government of India has developed. And there are several reports which have estimated that the potential for energy efficiency in the country is over maybe 20 billion US dollars. And I think in terms of if we are looking at $1 billion as 7,500 crores, so you are really looking at 15,000 crores of opportunity that exists in the country. Now, how much of that is easily accessible is, I think, is a tough question to ask. But the number shows, I think, whether we look at B numbers or ESL numbers or even AEEE's numbers, it shows that the opportunities is pretty significant. And ESCOs should benefit, I think, in terms of tapping this massive potential that exists in India. But what we have seen is, for a variety of reasons, that is not happening. And based on the information and data that AEEE has collected through surveys and one-to-one interactions with many of the ESCOs, we have compiled information, I think, related to about 140, 150 empaneled ESCOs who have enrolled into the BE program, and which is a number that is often quoted by government and industry. And one of the things that we always ask, that what is the significance of this 140, 150 ESCOs number? And we try to answer this question by asking many of these organizations that how many of them who are credentialed as ESCO, how many are really active in this energy services space? And we were somewhat surprised to find out that just about 25 to 30%, maybe 35 to 40 of them said that we are actively involved in energy services activities in a serious manner. And even out of those 25% of the ESCOs, very few, less than 15 to 20 ESCOs are actually doing the implementation of energy efficiency and energy services projects through performance contracting or energy savings route, where they are providing some sort of guarantee that we will deliver the savings if we go into an agreement. Many of these ESCOs in general have an average turnover of between 10 to 20 crores. And considering the existing pipeline of projects and future opportunities that many of these ESCOs, I think in discussions with us have talked about, I think we believe that many of these like ESCOs which are actually in the implementation can easily double or triple their annual revenue targets in the next 4 to 5 years, provided I think some of the enablement happened from either the government or financial institutions start to support them, I think, in terms of the financing that is available. And also, I think the end customers start to enter into a relationship where I think this partnership can actually be taken forward. So even as per these conservative estimates, where we have tried to see like what is the action that is happening, we still feel that ESCO market in the range of 1,000 to 2,000 crores, I think in the next 3 to 5 years at least, is possible. And we are still further away from the $1 billion mark, I think, the range that we are talking about. But still, I think it's a far cry from, I think, where we are right now, if we don't count Energy Efficiency Services Limited, because ESL, of course, I think is a 900-pound gorilla in this space, and I think that itself will dwarf the numbers that we are talking about. But we are not really talking about ESL in this particular webinar, but we are talking about the ecosystem which is supported by the private sector organizations and companies. So I think what we have also found out that often businesses are not interested in investing in energy efficiency, mainly due to significant upfront investments, and also they do not want to commit their financial resources for energy assets which may not be part of their core business. And in those situations, ESCOs, I think, you have a perfect business model where they can come in and funded by, I think, third-party financial institutions, they can guarantee the savings for the projects that they are going to execute. Now, ESCOs have been operating in India, I would say, for close to maybe 25 to 30 years. But due to many well-known issues, and I think these could be high transaction costs because of low ticket size of individual projects, which sometimes doesn't interest financial institutions, leading to limited financing opportunities, absence of private equity and venture capital in the segment, limited success stories that will give confidence to end customers, lack of awareness about the ESCO model or very long lead times to turn energy assessments or IGAs into signed contracts, and absence of, I think, well-established and large players, I think, which can give a little bit more confidence at times, and lack of sometimes capital and bandwidth to scale up the model in a few successful ESCOs, and ability of ESCO industry to consistently deliver on the promise. And in many cases, I think ESCOs being denied the due payment even after executing the projects and delivering the savings. So I think these issues are pretty well known and well documented. So I think we don't want to keep talking about some of these issues, which sometimes happen. So we want to focus that, okay, these are challenges, but so what? I think what can we do to address these challenges, and I think give a fillip to the energy services market, which we believe has significantly underperformed, even though there seems to be significant opportunities and potential, especially in the commercial building and in some segments of the industrial sector as well. So what are some of the ESCOs choke points? I mean, where do we feel that ESCOs really struggle, and what can be done about that? So we know that I think although there are big companies like I think Honeywell and Schneider and Siemens, and many of them are registered as ESCOs, but if you really look at, I think, which are the ESCOs which are really taking the risks and trying to go ahead and doing the implementation, we find that for a variety of reasons, again, maybe I think because of perceived risks or because of the internal issues. I have worked at Schneider Electric, so I'm a little bit familiar with, I think, what are some of the internal challenges that some of these larger companies face when we talk about this third-party finance guaranteed savings model, which is very, very different from the way I think they operate, which is more of a transaction based on their products and services, which can be paid upfront sometimes, and not relying on, I think, this guarantee and M&V and other things. So I think these are small enterprises which have significant technical and project management expertise, especially some of the really good ones. And we have some examples on this panel. And financial institutions face procedural issues, and that is sometimes, I think, hard for them to capture. So I think there are a lot of things related to measurement and verification of savings, which sometimes is perceived as a risk, and people want to simplify that, but then it doesn't go very well with end customers. I think we have seen that ESL has a model of simple M&V, which actually works for some ESCO, for some ECMs, but not for other ECM. And sometimes the private sector customers or large customers box at that. They say, no, we really want to see that savings are happening. So there are, I think, many issues like that are available. So I think in the interest of time, I'm going to pose like 4 questions that people, I think, when they are discussing, they can keep these things in mind. And these are more, I think, questions to help come out with solutions that I think we can work. I think EAEE as an industry platform, as an entity that a lot of our members asked us to work on. And also, I think we have BE and many other, I think, financial institutions that we can approach. So the questions are, how can private sector, public sector, and the financial institutions work together to help realize the potential of the ESCO market? So that's the first question. The second question is, what actions need to be initiated beyond the current schemes that will lead to more ESCO deals getting signed, more investments moving into the segment, and more trust getting built that will lead to a virtuous cycle where both the end customers and ESCOs can start to work together as a team. The third question is that how can latest technology in the field of sensors, meters, energy management systems on the hardware side can be combined with the advanced analytics using AI, ML techniques, visualizations, software as a service, and cloud hosting of software and databases to unleash the innovation of Indian entrepreneurs and startup ecosystem to jumpstart the ESCO market and help serve the Indian customers and remove the pain points and inefficiencies that these customers face on a day-to-day basis, but somehow that is not translating into the large business potential that we see. And the last question is, what can we do differently utilizing the learnings and challenges that we are well aware of to attract the private equity and venture capital into this segment, rather than continuing to rely on the debt market instruments, which we feel has, I think, achieved limited success. And I think if we have to try out new avenues, new models, what will some of those models be? Maybe also even learning from the renewable energy market segment or energy storage market segment, where some of the larger projects and bigger investments are coming in. So, so once again, I want to thank all of you who have tuned in to hear, I think, to the excellent panelists that EAEE team has been able to put together. And we are very eager to look at, I think, what are some suggestions and solutions beyond, I think, the typical things that we keep hearing from time to time. Look beyond those things to see and undertake some of the activities that will hopefully jumpstart this segment. So thank you very much, and I look forward to this exciting discussion. And over to you, Shravani.
Thank you, sir, for your opening remarks. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Arijit Gupta, who is Director at Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Mr. Arijit has vast experience in energy efficiency space, including ESCO domain, and is responsible for coordinating with line ministries, Niti Aayog, and others for planning and initiating energy efficiency schemes in the country. I now request Mr. Arijit to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shravani, and Dr. Satish Kumar, Dr. Bhaskar Natarajanji, and of course, I would like to thank EAEE for organizing this webinar and giving Bureau of Energy Efficiency to the opportunity to share our thoughts. Of course, the topic topic says that the actions towards the $1 billion ESCO market. So the topic speaks for itself. So as I think Dr. Satish has already provided a kind of a background in his opening remarks as to that we are all aware of the kind of the investment potential that exists. And of course, we referred the AAA report in, I think, all every domain, that the 1,60,000 crore kind of business of ESCO potential that exists. And also we are about the fact that out of this, almost 54% or around 86,000 crores is not in the residential sector. It's basically from the industries, municipalities, agriculture. And I think Dr. Satish has very well kind of highlighted the challenges which are well known to all of us. And so it's a good idea, it would be a good idea to kind of move on from not only sticking to and kind of discussing about the challenges, which I think is well documented, we are all well aware of. So before, I would just like to give you some brief highlights about what the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is currently doing. Of course, many of you are already aware of. So one of the things is that we have recently estimated this savings potential for 2018-19. The report is in the public domain, and this is the kind of mandate which we have been given by the PMO to come up with the impact of energy efficiency schemes which are being implemented across the country. Not only by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, but also by other organizations like ESL or other ministries like Ministry of Railways, Ministry of MSME, and whosoever are working in this domain of energy efficiency. And as per the report of 2018-19, the electrical energy savings that we have achieved was around 136 billion units, which is almost equivalent to 90,000 crore rupees in monetary terms of savings. So that is the amount of savings which we have achieved if we look at the various energy efficiency schemes. In total energy terms, if we talk about, it is roughly 24 million tons of oil equivalent, which is again around 2.7% of the total primary energy supply of the country. So just to give you an idea, if we translate this entire saving in monetary terms, it comes out to something around 90,000 crores. And in terms of CO2 emission reduction, it is around 150 million tons. So these are some of the achievements which we have, could achieve with the implementation of various schemes. Of course, I would not like to kind of go into explaining each of the schemes, which are well known to almost everyone. But just coming on to today's topic of ESCOs, so maybe a couple of things I would like to highlight. So, recently I think we had a meeting with a couple of ESCOs, and our finance division had this meeting wherein we wanted to understand what are the issues facing the ESCOs as far as the tax proposals are concerned. Because every year, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, we submit some tax proposal through the Ministry of Power to the Ministry of Finance for trying to get them incorporated in the budget. But unfortunately, we have been trying since the last so many years. Nothing concrete has come up in our union budget as of now, which actually will facilitate this entire business. That is mainly, as you can all understand, the priority of the government is certainly different, not in unlike in case of China or other countries or like Korea, where the government subsidizes or government promotes this kind of activities. Unfortunately, that is not the kind of thinking that is there in presently in our country. But we have been we have tried to raise this issue of multiple GST registration, which I think has been raised by one of the ESCOs only, that we are trying to promote. Let us see what happens and how it takes the form. And then again, coming back to another issue, like in the last year, we have got to know that of course, as Dr. Satish also mentioned, that although we have 127 empaneled ESCOs with us as on date, but out of that, hardly 30 to 40 ESCOs are actually active in this field. So why are we going for empanelment after every 2 years? That has been something which is an area of concern. But we have tried to address this issue, but we were told that in every country, wherever, or in every area, for example, wherever such empanelment takes place, it kind of takes place after the frequency is like 1 or 2 years. That was why we stick to it. But again, there is now, we are also trying to see if we can extend it at least by 1 year, particularly considering the fact that now we have this COVID thing in place. Of course, that has again add to the entire hurdle, add to another hurdle kind of a thing. And apart from these, of course, the other things which I would like to kind of highlight and kind of bring to your notice is we have been trying to create a pool of energy efficiency projects. And I think we engaged with 4 ESCOs, and it was in Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. So we tried to create a pool of energy efficiency projects. But again, 4 ESCOs were involved. I think everyone put on their hard work, and we did it through the IFC. So we are still trying to find out if we can kind of generate some kind of investment through those projects. Of course, other things like I think Dr. Satish also mentioned the debt instrument that we had in terms of the PRGFEE. That hasn't been quite successful as we have envisaged earlier. But of course, we have the PRSF again. Of course, it is implemented by the SIDBI. But of course, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is the kind of DGB is the chair of that committee as well, the PRSF committee. There we have seen some traction, and so it is a good thing that at least one of the instrument has moved ahead. Although in terms of the PRSF, the partial risk sharing facility. And coming back to Dr. Satish's point on creating the ecosystem, a favorable ecosystem for the ESCOs. So of course, what we envisaged maybe 10 years back was that the reason behind creating ESL was that once ESL implements some project, then it will facilitate in creating the ecosystem. Of course, many of you will argue that that hasn't happened to a large extent, but that is, I think, something which is a work in progress. And gradually, I think things should happen, because that was the idea behind once. Now that ESL has been successful, of course, their business model is different. Their way of kind of monitoring and verifying the savings are different, which may not be applicable to the ESCOs. But that was the idea. When how to create an ecosystem, at least where people get the confidence of confidence of implementing energy efficiency projects through the ESCO route. And coming back to the financial institutions, there are also the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in the last couple of years have organized several training of trainers program. In fact, we have conducted around 600 training of trainers program for the financial institutions across the country. But the problem with the financial institutions, as you are all aware, the people changes very rapidly. So the people who are trained, they have been shifted or changed. So again, new people come in. So that is an issue which is been bothering us also. We have been discussing these things regularly, interacting with us, just to kind of find out and come up with some favorable ecosystem for the ESCOs. So I think the questions that have been put by Dr. Satish are really great, and I think it would be great if we can focus our discussion surrounding those questions. So how can the public and private kind of organizations work together along with the financial institutions, and what actions to be needed, what are the latest technologies, how we can use them, like how you can use the artificial intelligence, how you can use the latest developments, and of course, lastly, what can we do differently. I am hopeful that we have so many eminent speakers who are there in the panel who will be speaking, and I hope that we'll be able to kind of understand the problems and then try and kind of mutually agree upon to find some solutions. Of course, as you can understand that the best way of addressing this issue is having some dialogue and then take it up from there onwards. So I would stop here, and again, thanks. I would like to thank AAA for providing the opportunity, and I will give it back to Shravani.
Thank you, sir. For our better understanding regarding the background of our audience, we have shared one question which you can see on your screens. I request you to share your response within 15 seconds for the same. Thank you for sharing your response. I'm now sharing the results. So yes, 41% of our participants are ESCOs and followed by 37% from the private sector. Next, I would like to call, so now we will begin with our first session on ESCO submissions. So I would like to call our first presenter, Mr. Milind Chittawar, who is the CEO of CTEC Solutions Private Limited, where his focus is to deliver 20% cost savings in commercial building sector. His passion is to develop and demonstrate 150 energy conservation measures at CTEC's Regional Energy Efficiency Center. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Could you please tell me how to share?
Sir, I've given you the app. You can see it.
Yeah, sure. Just 1 minute. We are uploading. Is my screen visible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
And am I audible also? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, thanks a lot to AEEE for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. And broad area which has been given to us is financing issues and payment recovery risks, how existing policy frameworks help in recovering payment. I have just made one modification that the help, I have just put a question mark. So just one slide about us. We have been into energy performance contracting since last 10 years. We are grade 1 ESCO, carried out over 500 assignments and different awards, right? Despite doing some kind of a pioneering work, the real achievement, whatever I would say that has been far less as compared to the potential available. So we have taken a mandate that wherever we work, we will be reducing energy cost at least by 20% to get a very significant interest of the management level at the client. We don't represent any brand or any product. We work like a one-stop solution, and we source all the energy efficiency technologies available. We have developed competence over 30 technologies, and then we choose around 8 to 10 to finally deliver 20% savings to our customers. And we have so far delivered around savings of 50,000 megawatt hour and which around 50 crores of INR in amount. So proceeding further, these have been some of our clients. So let's just put one fundamental slide for asking a fundamental question that what does it take to actually reduce the energy cost? So fundamentally, we see that there are 4 different segments. The first is ideas, then is financing, then third is execution, and the last one is maintaining the savings from the projects. So when we see ideas, so ideas are always plenty, right? These are almost like a medicine shop. We see as many medicines as they are there, but doctor gives us only 4 to 5 medicines to get right? So that's what the approach we believe in, right? And we need to have a brand independent approach, right? And selection of the most suited ideas should be there. Then the question comes financing. So will it be ESCO's investment? How will ESCO be borrowing? Will it be customers' investment, wherein ESCO will be giving guaranteed savings? So all those issues we have to solve. Every customer has their own priorities. Every customer has their own way of working. And then we have to execute the project. So while executing, we have to put the M&V which would be followed. So that has to be put in first, right? Then the speed of execution of project is very important because that's a cost to the ESCOs. And finally, we are doing all these for end results, right? And end result should be visible in customer's energy bill. Otherwise, customer does not take significant interest. Then we have to maintain the savings and also be ready for some new projects. So when this is the diversified areas which ESCO has to address, so the challenges are really plenty of them. Even then, I mean, around 10 years, around 30-35 ESCOs have done several projects, right? So that shows the competence of the ESCOs to actually deliver the results, right? However, what is expected out of the ecosystem or even from the customer segments, that's not happening. let's see them in details, right? So fundamentally, there are 2 points I would be deliberating upon. One is the financing issues, and second is the recovery issues. So let's see, I mean, to what extent really the financial issues are really the issues, right? So let's ask a very fundamental question. Is it really true that the customer doesn't have money to invest in the energy efficiency? Whatever investment they have done, right? Even if we take the, highest amount of investment, it won't be more than 5 to 10% of the total investment already done. So that amount is really very less, right? So we don't believe that the customers do not have money, right? So what's the issue? They don't have budget. Yes, they don't have budget. The team which is required to be deployed, and fundamentally the responsibility is to be taken, right? The staff employed in the companies, right, are not taking responsibility that they will deliver this much of savings by taking this much of investments, right? So they look for ESCOs, right, and put all the responsibilities on them, right from identification to investment, and then project management and delivering the savings, right? So as far as ESCOs are concerned, this is perfectly fine. That is the business opportunity for them, right? So that's good, right? So what's next? Where are the problems? ESCOs have smaller balance sheets, that's fact, right? Limited NBFCs are offering cash flow based financing, but it's good to see that at least limited number of NBFCs are doing that, right? Existing ESCOs, the existing bank, right, are not supporting the ESCOs, right? They are typically private sector banks or public sector banks. They don't understand energy efficiencies. There are very few banks which are primarily understanding energy efficiency, like for example, Tata Cleantech in NBFC side, or SIDBI on the government bank side. At the same time, we also see that the partial risk guarantee schemes which have been introduced, right, but their impact has been very less. We can see that the number of projects financed either in the BE scheme or in the SIDBI scheme, right? So what's the issue? So actually, availability of finance is not the real issue. Let me explain why I'm saying so. Right, there are plenty of schemes available for MSME, and we can see that even during this pandemic, government has come up with absolutely phenomenal efforts and schemes, and has made money available to MSME units, right? And then the definition of MSME has also been enhanced. So majority of the companies, I mean, many of the medium-sized companies will also come under the definition of MSME. So they will all be getting that benefit. So. And many of these schemes are actually better than PRGF or PRGFE, right? So the issue is actually World Bank ranking give us a phenomenal interpretation in terms of understanding what is the problem, right? So if we see World Bank ranking on the ease of doing business, so one of the parameter is availability of credit, right? So on availability of credit, India's ranking is 25th out of total 190, right? And our overall rank is 63 out of 190. So ease of doing business, if we say that, so now India has gained a phenomenal rank. I mean, coming from some 150 to 63 in past 8 to 10 years has been a phenomenal achievement. But then what's the problem, right? So this ranking does give us a feeling that the money is available, right? You need to deliver the business, you need to repay. So money is available. That's what we believe in, right? So what is the challenge? So challenge is, yes, challenge is there, and the challenge is really different. And this is based on our own experience I am sharing. So again, I am taking example of World Bank ranking for ease of doing business. So the real issue is enforcement of contract. So out of 190 countries, India's rank on enforcing contract, because what will happen is ESCO will borrow money, ESCO will make investment, ESCO will deliver savings. And at that point of time, all the customers are certainly not ethical and not committed to deliver the savings. When their electricity bill is to be paid, that is the top one priority, right? But when the payment of ESCO is to be done, that is the last priority. Why it is so? Because enforcement of contract, right? If electricity bill is not paid, right, they will put penalty, they will disconnect the connection, but what can ESCO do, right? So enforcement of the contract is the real issue. I will further substantiate this by giving the examples of other countries wherein work of ESCO has been comparatively much better. So Australia has enforcement of contract 6th rank, Singapore 1, UAE, where a good amount of work is happening, is 9th, right? USA 17, Thailand 37. So it is not something to do with really the developing countries versus developed countries. There are several developing countries which have very good ease of doing business and enforcement of contract. China's rank is 5th. So this is to as far as our understanding is concerned, our experience of last 10 years is concerned, the biggest of the problem is enforcement of the contract. So when that is the issue, then obviously your payment recovery is going to become a problem, right? The real challenge is payment recovery, and that's poor because we do not have a strong mechanism for enforcing the contract, which is obvious from the World Bank numbers, right? So now, what is the scenario? What's happening, right? Let's see that, right? And another fact is that many multinational companies, as it was shared by earlier speakers, that they do energy performance contracting business in other countries. They exist in India, but they are selling their products and services only and not energy performance contracting. So what is the reason? The reason is this only, that if they sign the contract, if they make the investment, then they don't have a proper enforcement of contract, and that can lead to non-payment of their receivables. So that's the issue, right? And if we try to go ahead with the formal legal system, so that takes so much of time that it absolutely doesn't make any business sense to follow that, right? And unfortunately, nothing has been done by the ecosystem which is working on for energy efficiency or on the ESCO side, right? On this particular aspect of payment recovery, how to enable ESCOs on that. So that is the work which is needed, and if the efforts are made instead of financing, because whatever was possible in financing that has been done, right, or that was already available. So the real concern is here. If something is done here, the result will be pretty good, right? But it's not that the government has not done anything. Government has done significant schemes in that also. So as we understand, right, I'm not a formal speaker for that, but then whatever we have used or whatever has been our experience, that's what I'm going to share here, right? There are two mechanisms which have been introduced in 2015 to 2017. I mean, their operationalization has taken this much of time, right? So one is MSME Samadhan, as we understand, and second is NCLT, right? So NCLT has been primarily made to empower the banks to recover their money, right? So that was the first thing. So in that, there is the second part is that if there are some non-payment of some business cases, so for that also NCLT can be used. But the power of NCLT in which is given to bank to recover their money is phenomenally high than as compared to a simple recovery which is to be done. I mean, business recovery which is to be done by another organization on another organization. So the capability or the tooth which have been given in NCLT is fairly different to a bank. Whereas actually when ESCO is investing the money, right, it is no way different than actually a bank, because practically it has invested and it is recovering, right? Now I'll share our experience on MSME Samadhan. MSME Samadhan is a scheme wherein most of the ESCOs, actual ESCOs are actually MSME, so they can use this particular scheme. So under this scheme, there is a website wherein if you are an MSME, you can register yourself and you can lodge your grievance, right? They call it as a grievance, which is fine, right? And you can put all the details and why it is not paid and what is the issue, right? But end of the day, what happens is the customer stops accepting that so much of savings are there, right? So it again goes into arbitration, and when it goes into arbitration, it again goes into the almost close to the formal legal system which we have in the country, right? So that's the reason even after having this kind of schemes made available, I mean, practically I mean, there has not been any benefit as far as we are concerned. I mean, we have tried that, but so far we have not yet received any benefit, or there has not been any outcomes. So with this, I come to my final slides, wherein what are the suggestions which we believe in and what is the way out, right? So first thing that is happening is that actually the non-players, right, are actually taking the shots that what is the problem for the ESCOs and what is the solution, right? It's fine that there is somebody who is taking concern of it, but then actually they are not actually hitting the right issues or coming to the right problems, because they are not themselves a player for it. So it's okay. I mean, we don't feel that everything should be sorted out for us, but ESCOs will have to sort out themselves, and I definitely believe in if they have to survive, they will find out their way how to solve this, right? So the point is very clear that payment security mechanism has to be evolved for ESCOs, right? Government has been working on that, right? And even as I understand that government understands very well that their number is now to be improved. That can happen only by one single aspect, that is enforcement of the contract, because all other aspects they have improved a lot. So unless until they improve on this, so efforts are being happening on that, but we don't know really how much of time it will take, and when this will happen, we have no idea, right? So one of the fundamental problem in shared savings model is all the investment is done and then everything is left on to the recovery, right? And with a poor enforcement of contract, right? So ESCOs need to correct that business model. We definitely see that ESL has come up with a deemed savings kind of an approach, which is not a textbook kind of methodology, which is fine, right? And that definitely helps in solving the recovery issues, right? But however, we also understand that what customers are needing and customers are looking for is actual reduction in the bill. So that deemed savings approach does not address it full, but it definitely solves the recovery issues to some extent. So ESCOs will need to evolve a fundamental business model instead of accepting that this is what it is, and we have to do either guaranteed savings or we have to do shared savings. But then they will have to evolve their own way of doing it, and I'm sure ESCOs will come up with something. Then we have a fundamental question, right? We have seen at least two clear-cut examples, right? In countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia, wherein Etihad has come up as a real super ESCO, right? Wherein ESCO is himself not a player, then only then super ESCO can deliver something to the ESCOs, right? Wherein they come up with tenders, they come up with projects, right? They fund it, and then in the guaranteed savings, it is all done, right? And the money is also made available, particularly for that particular project. So why is that this is something which has been absolutely significant, if not successful, but in the country it has really made a very, very significant impact. And these countries, we know for sure, has been a very, very late starter, right? Because energy was never a cost to them, right? So where energy is not a significant cost and they can still come up with a successful model, I mean, we have to just adopt to these things. And if we really adopt to these things, and there are lots of government-owned companies which are very high on energy cost, and if they have to be competitive, they will have to pitch in ESCOs to reduce their energy cost. So with that, I'll finish my presentation. Thank you. Over to Shravani.
Thank you, sir. So next, I would like to call Mr. Arjun Gupta, who is the founder and CEO of Smart Joules, an ESCO where he focuses on eliminating energy wastage in buildings and factories. Mr. Arjun is also on the Executive Council of AEEE and wears several other hats. Over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you so much. Could you just confirm that you can?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to everybody to organize this, and really good to hear Milind sir's comments on the sector. So I'm representing Smart Joules here. We have been an ESCO in the Indian market since 2015. And just a little quick thing, I think we are the largest energy efficiency team in India with 110 people across different domains: product design, projects, operations, automation, and analytics. And we carefully track our energy savings impact. So this is the impact till date, around 7 crore kilowatt hour equivalent of energy savings delivered. And another interesting data point is that we are capturing 70% of the value of the savings delivered. So the job of ESCO is not only to deliver savings, but also to capture the value of the saving. So we try both of these. Now I want to get to some of the topics that have been suggested here. Firstly, before digging too much into the topics, I would like to say one thing, that I think this ESCO market is on the verge of exploding. I think this is going to take off. I think the $1 billion market target that AEEE has put out in front of us is very achievable. And I think we have a good shot of achieving that target within the next 5 years. So I would like to add some optimism and some confidence to anybody who's wanting to either enter the ESCO market or in any way, either as an ESCO or a financier or as a customer or a vendor. This market is definitely going to increase in size and very substantially so. So I think $1 billion target is very, very realistic, within reach, and we will make it happen. Now, the conversation is typically in the forum of ESCO is around challenges, but I think it's important to realize that we have to all make it happen, and we will make it happen. So, let's talk about some of the, couple of our learnings here in the last 5 years. First is that, for use of too many formulas to calculate savings is not going to work at scale. This is one of the things that we have learned. Even if you have very simple things, simple ways, so you have to simplify energy saving as much as possible for your customer, so that he's not having to use, a combination of 3, 4, 5 formulas to calculate every month when you go to ask him to pay, what has been the saving. Because there is the bone of contention between the customer and the ESCO that what is the saving that you have delivered and how much is because of you or versus because of me. So one of the primary jobs of the ESCO while setting up a contract is to simplify it as much as possible and remove the use of formulas as much as possible. The second thing is that, Mr. Milind, sir, who I respect a lot, he mentioned that, the legal problems of the country. These are all very, very important, critical problems that have been holding the ESCOs back for decades now. I don't think that we should expect that these problems are going to get solved anytime soon. These contractual problems, sanctity of contracts and being able to recover and reduce, these problems will not go away. I think the government can and should do a lot more to support companies, but I don't think these problems are going to go away in the next 5 years. So, to make a $1 billion market is that customers of ESCOs need to want ESCO solutions and need ESCO solutions throughout the contract period. So if you are not there as an ESCO, tomorrow the customer doesn't want to pay you, he should feel the pinch. Okay, so I think a lot of times the ESCO value creation is heavily front-loaded. That we will come in, we will create a solution, we will fund the project, and then you keep paying us. I think ESCOs need to think more carefully about continuous value creation for customers and making that value creation very, very visible and obvious for your customer, so that the customer doesn't even think of wanting to renege on the contract. That thought should not come in their head that, oh, I will be better off if the ESCO is not there and I stop paying them. So our efforts have to all be in the direction that customer has to think, if this ESCO is not there, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to gain, because the ESCO is creating continuous value for me or for some other reason. So I think, the beam model was referred to, which ESL has done really well. I think that model can work in the retrofit, simple equipment retrofit area. For the other things, I think the business model that we are currently really bullish on and we think is going to really, really take up well in the market is to learn from, just the other infrastructure that exists around us. Think of energy as a utility. People already are used to thinking of electricity as a utility, water as a utility. If we start thinking of energy services like cooling, hot water, steam, compressed air as services, as utilities, then I think this becomes a very interesting model. So just to kind of lay it out, and our goal is to save energy, which we are going to do. So in one kind of thought in my mind, and I think this is going to work out very well, is if you own the entire infrastructure of cooling or hot water or steam or compressed air at your customer site, you are the one who has installed it, designed it, you are the one who operates and maintains it, and you have agreed with your customer that the customer has to pay a fixed amount of rupees per ton of cooling or per kilocal of hot water or steam, a kg of steam, and you agree to certain parameters that the customer wants. So you understand the process. Do they want cooling? Do they want cooling between 6 and 10 degrees? You agree to that. Do they want it 24 hours? You agree to that, and you sell them that. So you're still doing the same job of saving energy, but now instead of selling an energy saving based on a formula that you have to agree with every month, you say that you please simply just buy the cooling from me, which is a metered value. So just like a solar plant is metering the energy and selling power purchase agreement based on rupees per kilowatt hour of electricity, you sell cooling here with rupees per ton of cooling and rupees per kilocal of hot water. So, in this case, what is happening is if you are the one who has designed and installed and owns and operates and basically controls this entire utility in the customer side, now the customer's capability of throwing you out of the facility is much, much, much lower than if you are just concentrating on a small part of their, little retrofit here that I've changed one of your 10 pumps. Then it's very easy for them to throw you out. But if you control and own and have built an plant, it's very difficult for them to throw you out. That's number one. Second point here is about they should want you, not just need you. And here I think is where the technology comes into place. So when you look at ESCO, there are three levels of value creation. One is design, one is equipment, and third is operation. These are how you create energy savings. In design, I think value engineering comes up front. Equipment, mass procurement can, give you a competitive advantage where your customer may want you. And then in operation is where the technology comes in. So here, you just think about the teams of operation and maintenance in the client sites. These teams are, typically they don't have a lot of technology to help them do their work. And they have, mundane day-to-day jobs where they have to, go into 30 different areas to do regular maintenance works. And their maintenance activities are also not really well thought out, or, they're periodic and time-based in nature rather than need-based in nature. So can we create value for customers through technology where, forget about energy efficiency, that is one thing which is already there. And making their day-to-day jobs easier, more fun, more interesting. That is, so we think that that's a really fundamental area for any ESCO to become a scalable ESCO. You have to invest in technology. Without technology, it is going to be very difficult to scale. And technology, in terms of handful of people, not actually led so please. Sorry, I lost my connection, but I think I should be back. So these issues need to be solved. I think, we focus a little too much on issues as an industry. I agree with the Milind sir. But serious issues are still there. We need to solve them. I think people are coming in to resolve them. So I feel pretty confident that those are going to be solved. So overall, I think it's in some ESCOs to actually take this industry forward. And it's much within our capability. Of course, the work that has been suggested with respect to contracts becoming stronger should definitely continue. And I think the government should really take itself seriously as a big consumer of energy and create an opportunity for ESCOs to come in. So if, I can imagine if all the, if 100 government buildings come in and say, I'm going to go with cooling as a service, just help me chill water, what is your price? ESCO contract, which is very scalable, and I'm strategically about how the demand center for ESCOs and offer the safe contracts to the ESCOs to actually scale up. So that is the gist of my comments. Sorry, I'm in the car, so maybe cutting through. So that was the summary and gist of my comments. Thank you very much for inviting me to the discussions later on.
Thank you, sir. Our next presenter is Mr. A.P. Rai, who is the Managing Director at eSmart Energy Solutions Limited, where he is leading and managing all verticals, including business development, project execution, and others. Mr. Rai has experience in textile, steel, intelligent transport management system, and power industry. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Shravani, for introduction. And I would hope I am audible and visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, oh, that's right. So thank you, AEEE, to inviting and giving an opportunity and platform to share our experiences and opportunity which we have in the hand and the constraint which as an industry we are facing here with. So can you show me project my slide?
If anyone has the slides which are to be shared by
the new presentation on the screen?
No, sir, we can't see.
Yes, wait, Shravani, I'll do it.
Okay,
Wait,
thank you.
let me put the presentation, then give me the charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shravani, please give me the charge if you have not given yet.
I have given you.
Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is visible. Okay. So we are an ESCO company, eSmart Energy Solution Limited. I represent the company as a CEO and a member of board of directors. We are a pure ESCO company and empaneled with the BE as a ESCO Grade 2 company. We have our own manufacturing facility in Nasik. We manufacture our LED light and undertake the project under ESCO model. Okay. So on the first slide, I would like to portray the complete picture in a very brief manner. So bottom you can see our energy efficient LED lights, and right side the project which we have executed, and how we control and monitor our project of LED street light. Okay. So we are into LED street light, and our major customers are municipal corporation, where we undertake a project on ESCO model. Okay. Can we go down? Yeah. So as I mentioned, we have a manufacturing facility in Nasik where we manufacture our LED street light, and we are having a complete in-house R&D team, and we have an integrated facility where we manufacture our light and panels. Lights are broadly, it is a group control light on the field, as well as we have a individual light control mechanism. Our lights are highly energy efficient, which brought around 75% of energy efficiency as against the conventional street light of sodium vapor lights. Okay. Now, how we achieve that, the 75% and more energy efficiency, as we have a very robust kind of a product where we use highly the thermal management is the key into our product. So by using aluminum extruded heat sink, as well as we use in a higher wattage of a street light technology, it's kind of a heat pipe technology we use into higher wattage of a street light to manage a better thermal conductivity and to brought a higher energy efficiency for our customer. As a business model, we manufacture light, but we don't sell. We use our lights for our project, which we undertake under the ESCO model. And it is a pure ESCO where we replace the conventional light of our customer with our LED light at our cost. Client did not require to make us even a single rupee investment into the project. We do initially a benchmark study of the total power consumption, assuming that a complete light network is working, and that baseline existing energy consumption get accounted into the agreement so that it become a baseline for the entire contract period. And we guarantee to the customer by putting our light that the saving would be minimum, say 75% as against the conventional light. And if saving goes down as against the contracted saving, we pay 50% of the loss of a saving to the customer as a penalty. That the kind of a confidence into our project and the project experience we have. Okay, so now as against this, we take a share from corporation out of the saving. 90% saving of energy efficiency we take as a share, and 10% we leave for the customer. So that is our commercial model I am mentioning. So one commercial is a energy bill where, say currently if it is bill is of 100 rupees, after putting our light, for example, if it is a 70% saving, so discom bill will come to 30 rupees and 70 rupees would be a energy saving. Out of that 70 rupees, we take a 90%, that is 63 rupees comes to us, and corporation keeps 7 rupees. So in energy bill, corporation gets approx 7%, 7 to 8%, and the second cost municipal corporation incurs is the operation and maintenance cost, which usually comes around 200 to 250 rupees per light per month to municipal corporation, which we used to do at a, say roughly a price of 50 rupees per light per month. Their municipal corporation save around 75 to 80% on account of operation and maintenance. We conduct all warranty, guarantee and maintenance for 10 years. After end of the 10 year of the project, we transfer all street light as well as the panels transferred to the customer at a nil price. Even after end of the 10 year, it lasts for minimum 5 years if customer would like to continue to do the operation with us. And in that case, after 10 years, the whole saving would be a benefit to the customer. So that will generate more and more revenue to the customer after the contract period. So in nutshell, in our model of a ESCO, pure ESCO, customer did not require to invest even a single rupee. They will get 7 to 8% or 7 to 8% on energy bill, and around 75 to 80% they will save on operation and maintenance. After 10 years, they will get the complete system at a free nil price, and after 10 years, it will last for minimum 5 years if they will continue operation and maintenance with us. So that the value proposition we bring to the customer. Now our lights are a smart light because it is connected through the IoT platform to integrated control and command center. So what we do, we build a control and command center in a premises of municipal corporation, and all street lights are connected through a CCMS panel. So say on each CCMS panel, approx say 100 or depend on the power consumption. It depends on how many numbers are going to be connected with each CCMS panel. So all lights are connected through CCMS panel, and CCMS panel are connected to control room through GPS. And from control room, we can monitor the complete lighting system of the city. So for example, we can see from control room that how many panels are working, how many panels are not working, how much current is overdrawn, how much current is underdrawn. Based on that, we can monitor the project in the field. So that's how we work on a ESCO model. And if you see on next slide, next slide, please. So yeah, so on credential side, we have completed 13-14 project. One slide back, please. 13 project, more than 350,000 street light on the ground, and we are saving per annum 137,000 billion kilowatt hour of energy, and in terms of carbon emission, it's 112,000 tons per annum. That's the kind of a saving we are bringing into the picture. Now, we as a company, as a differentiator, there are other ESCO model or ESCO companies are working, but it's the saving is in the range of say 45 to 50, or in certain cases it is going to 55%. Now here we bring and guarantee a saving of 75% minimum. If we do a dimming, it will 5 or 6% may add more into the saving. So our saving is around 25% is extra over and above, you know, the what ESCO in other players are doing into the market. That the additional volume has been saving has been brought by us. If you see in the table, whether if it is a visible, right side there is a energy saving. If you see in the project like Bhubaneswar, it is a 80%. Jamnagar, it is a dimmed project, which is a 61%. But apart from the dimmed project, those who are a real ESCO project, it is ranging from 71% to 80%. And these are the projects which is going on. Some of the projects are going on from last 5 years, and we are regularly getting paid. Some of the project has been recently completed. So this is a history, and it has been demonstrated that, okay, what we are bringing a value on the table, we are getting paid. That is the most important thing in a business. If you are getting paid, it means it has been demonstrated. Here, one point I would like to make, you know, the project like a dimmed project and a pure ESCO. In dimmed project, customer comes with a tender that, okay, it would be a 62% of a dimmed saving. Whether you are bringing a saving more or less, it doesn't matter in a deciding factor of a tender. That is one of the concerns that we can discuss later on in a Q&A session. So that's the thing. Now, coming to the point where in the next slide, we are discussing about what the challenges that ESCO has in energy efficiency business. Say one problem, as I mentioned, that concept of a dimmed saving and ESCO, pure ESCO. That is one of the concerns that we'll discuss later on. The second biggest challenge is the funding. Now, in energy efficiency in a private sector, mostly the companies are MSME companies having a very high technical acumen and research and development. They have a good product, but to serve those projects, funding is a concern, because in a traditional way of doing a funding, you have to offer the collateral to the financial institutions. The second issue comes on the way is a ticket size. In a business like you know, in a public lighting, there is a ticket size are reasonably high, so that's not a much of a concern in a banking system. But in a scenario where there is a ESCO business in a industrial segment where ticket size is ranges roughly from 20 lakhs to 1 crore or a bit more, there the financial institution has a ticket size issues. Okay, and third is the time taken by the financial institution. If you are taking a project where fund requirement is say 20 lakh or 50 lakhs and going to a financial institution, the whole process of getting a sanction takes a minimum 3 months they used to take, if you have all collateral and other things are available. But question arises that whether project has that much of a time or not to have a 3 months, 6 months minimum only for getting a sanction, and that is also not very sure whether you are putting your proposal and it is going to be approved. So after 2 months of effort, if it is saying no, then again you have to start a process. So financing is a real challenge to the specific MSME company who don't have a collateral as such. So these are the issues. Now, definitely, as we discussed some time back, the support from the government and the World Bank, it is immense in terms of PRSF guarantee. We are one of the beneficiary of the PRSF guarantee. With the help of PRSF guarantee, we have executed a project where we have taken a guarantee of 45 crores rupees to guarantee a loan of 45 crores. But still, that provides us a guarantee for 75% of the loan. So ESCO company has to bring about 44% of the total project value as a collateral, either in terms of a cash margin or in terms of a property. That is still it's challenging. The funding based on the cash flow is again challenging in the banking system. Even though if you have a good cash flow, banks again need a collateral even in that case. So these are really challenging scenario. But PRSF has a good scheme. It has given a lot of benefit, but it has come with a certain constraint which we need to address it, and we need to bring that matter to the right forum where that decision can be taken. PRSF scheme has certain caps. Okay, so for each project they can secure a loan of a term loan of 15 crore, and for one organization it can go up to a 60 crores loan can be guaranteed. But for each project, it is a 15 crore of a loan can be guaranteed. These limits are good enough in case of a small nature of a project, but project kind of a public lighting system, where funding requirement is more in number of projects. If it is a small project, okay, within that limit, it can cover. But if project size is big, and which normally if you have a 50-60,000 of a street light in a municipal corporation, you need this limit falls short of, and in that case you need to bring additional collateral to the bank to get the funding. So that is
So as we are running short of time,
I will wind up into 3 minutes.
Okay,
so that is the challenge that we need to work out with the help of BEE and right forum. We need to bring that matter up so that the limit could be relaxed or extended so that big project could be taken off. The objectivity is to execute energy efficiency project. Now, so that is our submission and request, and the implementing agency has to take care of the project in the spirit. And it has been experienced that even though you have a sanction with a bank, and bank is an impaneled bank with the SIDBI, and ESCO is impaneled with the BEE, but even after having a sanction or signing the contract, there was an afterthought, and guarantee has not been issued. So afterthoughts will really a problem for organizations of ESCO company. So that has also need to be looked into. That is our submission. Okay. Now, with the given challenges, what would be the other source and means of finance that we need to look into seriously? Definitely, as on the next slide, as I mentioned, the other source of finance we need to look from a equity funding perspective and a quasi-equity funding perspective. It will breeze from both perspective, whether it is a equity and debt. So quasi-equity will bring a bridge from equity funding and debt funding. It depends on the appetite and the individual organization level things that need to be looked into. But apart from having a support of PRSF and other government support, we need to look into how we can channelize the equity funding and quasi-equity funding for the ESCO business. That would be really helpful. And I believe that we need to have a more bit deliberation on that subject matter to help the ESCO so that we could bring a more saving to the country and to the society. That's all from my side. Thank you. Thank you, Shravani.
Thank you, sir. So here we end our first session. So moving to our next session on investor submission. First, I would like to call Mr. Harish HV, who is the managing partner at ECube Investment Advisors. Mr. Harish has over 30 years of experience in consulting, corporate governance, corporate finance, investment banking, and strategy in a wide range of sectors. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this event. I can see that we are a little behind time, so I shall keep my submission fairly short. As was introduced, my name is Harish. I come from an organization called ECube Climate Finance. We are in the process of setting up a dedicated NBFC focused on climate, addressing the issues of climate change in India. We've chosen a number of areas that we want to operate in, which includes green buildings, EVs, and energy efficiency is as well as renewable energy. So these are the areas we want to lend to. We are focused on the corporate sector. eCube is promoted by a team of 6 people, including myself and 4 other people who were all senior leaders from the Tata Group, and one other gentleman who was in MSCI. So that's where we want to do, and we are looking at ESCOs as one of the possible areas that we could lend to once we get into operation, which we hope to do early next year. So that's about us. I think the ESCO opportunity is fairly well covered across various speakers. In terms of companies itself, I think many of you are familiar with a concept called ESG, which is environment, society, and governance. And these are requirements that most companies, whether listed or unlisted, will be required to follow. Companies in India are being pushed to develop to write what is called a business responsibility report, which is far more detailed than the little energy conservation measures that they talk about in their annual report currently. So I think there is a push from the government to at least talk about what people are doing in energy conservation, which should help. Investors are all expecting companies to do more on ESG, and finally consumers want products which are safe and made with the right environmental standards. So I think if we ESCO can also talk about their greenness a little more than they currently do, that will help in raising finance. Now, in terms of raising finance itself, I think if we look at equity, I'm sure Sanjeev can give a much better picture than me on this, but for a equity investor, they're looking at the ability to scale in a reasonably quick manner over a short period of time, and that would require replicability of the business model. Currently, from what I understand, it is fairly individual contract dependent, and each contract is more like a consulting assignment rather than a regular scaling model. If you look at models which have scaled in India across other sectors, you will see, for obviously the best example is the IT services, where they scaled leveraging the ability to service a high-cost market from a low-cost geography, that is India. The second that scaled very well in India was the BPOs and or the IT services companies. Again, they managed to create ability to do large volume of work in a very replicable manner. A more simpler example would be security services companies, again providing thousands and thousands of security guards. So they all created some model of which could scale very rapidly, and that attracts equity investors. Now, if we have to scale up in this sector, we have to either leverage a sort of a product or create a replicable contract framework that can be quickly done and easily understood. We should also think of, we heard about mention about contractual issues with companies. Can we leverage technology to overcome some of that? Because that is not going to go away. Can we leverage the new sensors and other devices to sort of control the energy efficiency and maybe use it to shut off equipment when we don't get paid to give us more leverage, just like the electricity board does? We need to think of those solutions. From a financing perspective, yes, I think we have to move out of the traditional asset-based lending into cash flow-based lending, and to some extent, financing through debt also looks at similar requirements of predictability, scalability, and ease of the contract. If your contract is very complex and with lots of ifs and buts, that would make a lender nervous to do it purely on the basis of contract. So I think, can we look at tripartite agreements where the consumer also gives additional comfort to the lender for the equipment since they are going to be installed in his side? Can we look at leasing models? So here are some thoughts on what could be created. Obviously, the opportunity is great. We need scalable, predictable models that can take it to the next height very quickly. Let me stop here. We are almost at 4:30. I know we have 15 minutes and we have a Q&A session, and Sanjeev also needs to speak. So thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. So next, I would like to call Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, who is partner with Actis, where he is responsible for Actis energy infrastructure investments in Asia. He has extensive experience in energy sector, including development of financial instruments for the Indian ESCOs. He is also the nominated executive council member of AEEE. So over to you, sir. Sir, can you please unmute yourself? Sir, are you facing any issue on your side? Sir, we are not able to hear you. Sanjeev, sir, we are not able to hear you. Sanjeev sir, can you please log in again? We are not able to hear you.
We are sorry about, I think, this glitch. Maybe Bhaskar, in the meantime, while we see if Sanjeev will join from, yeah, I think Sanjeev audio is visible now. Sanjeev, can you speak?
Can you people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
And maybe you need to log out of your other device because there is some echo coming in.
Okay, can you guys hear me all right now?
Yeah, perfect.
Can you people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, look, I'm sorry for this technical glitch, but if let me just quickly start off. I'll try and wrap it up in 5 minutes. So, you know, firstly, thank you AEEE for inviting me for this. You know, Actis is an investor in large-scale utility grid-connected power projects. We don't do service companies. So whatever I'm going to tell you is more from the perspective of a private equity investor in the energy sector rather than an investor in ESCOs. But I have been involved in developing some financial solutions for ESCOs over a period of time. So I have some idea about the sector. So, you know, when I was looking to put my thoughts together for this session, I was wondering why the ESCO sector has not been able to attract equity capital as has been so easily done by the renewable sector in India. And I came to the conclusion that there are some striking similarities between what the energy efficiency service companies try to do and what IPPs who are selling power to commercial and industrial consumers do. So in the CNI business, you have IPPs who enter into power purchase agreements with commercial and industrial users, and these are typically consumers whose credit rating varies from AAA to single A, quite similar to the kind of profile that the ESCO industry would also be faced with. I really like the point that Arjun Gupta was making earlier, that if service providing, if ESCO companies control provision of heat and steam and other consumables of an industrial customer, and there is an appropriate agreement to capture the economic relationship between the ESCO and the industrial customer, then there is a very striking similarity to the commercial relationship between a CNI customer in the renewable space and what you folks are trying to do. And if this can be done in a scalable and a replicable manner, then there is no reason why private equity would not be attracted to invest in this sector. What are the things that private equity typically looks for? First is the quality of the founder is absolutely critical. Private equity is backing the founder, they're backing his track record. Has he created value in his business? Does he have a focused business plan? And this is extremely important. You know, to give an example, when we look to invest and we meet potential investee companies, if people come to us and say that, look, we can set up 1 gigawatt of capacity in 3 years, we know that this guy lacks credibility because you know, this kind of a scalability is just not possible. But if someone comes to us and lays out a realistic business plan, then we like that. The second is there should be alignment between the investor and the founder. So there should be economic and financially, the two should be economically and financially aligned. The challenges arise when the founder, for example, the amount of money that a founder is supposed to make is linked to the financial performance. Then misalignments can happen because then the founder is incentivized to, for example, take certain steps which increase his profitability so that his returns from the business go up. The third is a top-class management team. Again, a founder can't do everything himself, so a private equity investor would really depend on the founder to put a good management team around himself, and the private equity investor would expect that there would be consultation between himself and the founder to ensure that a fit for purpose team is put in place. The business model should stack up, and this kind of links back to the point that I was making earlier. Some of you have been talking about the challenges of contract enforceability. This is something that is par for the course in India, and I don't see that situation changing in the short term. So if you are able to put together a portfolio of assets, a portfolio of contracts where your counterparties are ranging from very high quality to not so good quality, such that on a portfolio basis, the default rates can be reasonably predicted. That is something that the private equity investor would like very much, and he would take comfort from that. Because the idea is not to build a top-rated portfolio. You can't do that in India very easily. But if you have a diversified portfolio across sectors, across credit ratings, then that is something that will give comfort to a private equity investor. Scalability is exceedingly important. Harish made this point earlier. Private equity makes money from growth, right? If there is growth, there will be value that gets created. So it has to be scalable. And scalability comes from keeping your business model relatively as simple as you possibly can. If your business model is simple, if it is replicable, so for example, if you're focused on providing cooling solutions to a particular sector, say the hotel industry, for example, right? And it is therefore possible to replicate it across the AAA rated Indian hotels company to the not so highly rated OYO type of hotels. Then you have a portfolio, and private equity will come in and they will invest because they think that you can scale that up. You can scale that up. Is debt financing available? Again, this is important because availability of debt provides for easier growth, easier scalability. But I acknowledge that debt in India for ESCOs initially is going to be a challenge. And therefore, there is a need for more risk capital to come in. So when you look to raise private equity, or you should, and your private equity partner should be such that he recognizes this need and he will be willing to put in more equity initially to allow for the assets to get created and for the contracts to start generating cash. And once that has happened, then you can refinance your equity by taking in some more incremental debt. The regulatory regime, we have spoken about that earlier. EHS&G, this is again very important. Impact investing is a very big theme in India, and Esco industry fits in very well with impact investing. I think the challenge with the Esco industry today is that it has not been able to position itself well with the private equity investors. And if you are able to do that, you will suddenly find that there is significant interest, and perhaps the best way to do it is for one or two transactions to happen. And the best way to make transactions happen is to have a business model which has the issues and the features that we discussed earlier. It is not going to be very easy to get in high quality private equity or venture capitalists to come in, but once you are able to do that, you will suddenly find that the appetite for private equity for this sector is significantly larger than what is what is being observed today. The last is exit considerations. Whenever private equity invests, while at the time of investing, it has one eye focused on how it's going to exit, and the attraction of a good diversified portfolio is that it would allow the investor to either look at a listing in a stock exchange, and there have been a number of instances overseas where this has happened, or he could look to sell out to a more mature investor who would then be willing to put in additional capital to take it to its next level of growth. So let me stop here, and we'll do some questions later on whenever you have time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As we are running out of time, we will not have our panel session, but Dr. Bhaskar, who is Senior Advisor at AEEE, will direct 2 questions to our investors. Over to you, Bhaskar, sir. Bhaskar, sir, we are not able to hear you.
Please unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
As we are running out of time, I'm just going to pose one question each to Mr. Agarwal and to Mr. Harish. To Mr. Agarwal, I understand that you have not really considered investing in the ESCO space at present, but in terms of the future, what would be the kind of ballpark levels that you want companies to be in terms of the size and also in terms of scalability from today's levels to maybe 2x or 3x? If you can give some hint as to what an impact investor is looking for.
Yeah, look, I think the current scale of your operations is important, but not that important. If you are able to demonstrate today that you understand this industry well, that you have created value so far, and you are able to demonstrate that this industry has the potential to grow, then you will get a certain type of investor who will come in and put money today. It could be an early stage investor, it could be a venture capitalist, or it could even be a private equity investor. So I don't think you should feel too much constrained about your existing size of operations. You should really focus on developing a unique proposition which is simple and which is scalable, and you will find money coming in.
Okay, thanks for that answer. Now I have a question for Mr. Harish. In terms of the number of players in the market, as we had mentioned, there are probably about 20 to 25 or 30 serious ESCOs today in the market. In the panel, we've had 3 of the very, very experienced ESCOs who have established themselves and shown that the business model works. In this respect, as a potential possible investor, what is the kind of scale up that you see? You want companies to you want about 40, 50, 60 companies being available so that your funds, you can raise a significant amount of funding, or would this present number of 20 or 25, out of which maybe 10 might come up for further equity, is that sufficient?
I think number of companies is not a very key factor. Obviously, if someone wants to operate in this market as a service provider, or in our case as a lender, it will help if there are more companies, because that gives us some choice. But it is not a limitation per se that you need to have 100 companies in a particular sector. Why there are only 20 companies is a question that needs an answer. Is it the lack of potential, or is it the lack of a business model? In India, typically in any sector, as it prospers, we will see a lot of Me Too. So I think as these companies scale up, we will see many more coming up. So I don't think number of companies is the key limitation, though it will help if there are many prosperous companies like in other sectors.
One last question for both Mr. Harish and for Mr. Agarwal. Considering that the normal 4 to 5 or 6 year time frame for exit is probably very limiting in the ESCO space, would it be considered worthwhile to extend this to maybe a 10-year exit potential possible?
So, Bhaskar, it doesn't really matter whether one set of investor is looking to exit after 4 years or 5 years, right? So, depending on the life cycle and the stage of the life cycle where the ESCO is, one investor will be replaced by another set of investors. So, at the initial stage, you will find someone coming in more like a venture capitalist. He'll be replaced by a private equity investor, and then that private equity investor will be replaced by longer-term infrastructure investor, right? So don't see that. Don't try to get a 10-year capital at the beginning of the ESCO itself, because you won't be able to find it.
If I could just supplement, Sanjeev, I think the key metric is not that you want 10-year capital. The key metric is in 5 years, what kind of growth can be demonstrated by for an investor in terms of the business potential, and can you scale up 4 or 5 times or 6, 7 times, so that the investor can see his money earning adequate returns. So if you can do that, that is fine. But if you are saying that I can only scale up to 3 times my current size, you may not have investor interest. And as Sanjeev said, if an investor comes with 5 years and you have scaled up a reasonable amount of times over that period, somebody else will come in to take you on the journey from there to the next level.
Okay. I am afraid at this moment I'll have to call the discussion to a close. We are really exceeding our time. But I do want to mention a couple of points. One, AEEE is definitely interested in taking this debate and discussions forward, and will certainly be reaching out to potential investors as well as to select ESCOs who are interested in looking at equity as a potential source of investment. Having said that, I do want to thank all the panelists, both the ESCOs as well as the investors who have joined us here today and shared their initial thoughts on this very important subject. I also want to thank the participants who have joined us here for this 2-hour session. There were a couple of questions that came up for the ESCOs in particular, which I'm afraid I won't be able to take up, but I will separately email it to the ESCOs and we will seek their responses and get back to the persons who raised these questions. But I do want to mention that AEEE will come back and reach out to every one of you to look at how is it that we can expand this market, as Dr. Satish said, from what it is today to perhaps maybe 1,000 crores is where it is today, excluding all ESL. To how can we take it up to 5,000 crores? I'm indeed very pleased to note the positive, encouraging comment made by Sri Arjun Gupta that we will be moving towards achieving this target in the next 5 years. Once again, let me thank everyone, close this event, and say good evening to every one of you. Thank you so much, one and all.
Thank you.